Hungarian autocrat Viktor Orban is revealing new details about his discussions with Donald Trump in Florida over the weekend, including that Trump, quote, will not give a penny to Ukraine if reelected this fall, a move he believes would end that war with Russia. Orban made the comments on Hungarian state television this morning. It comes just after the former president posted a highlight reel of Orban's visit to his Truth Social account, which included Orban praising Trump's leadership and lamenting the state of the world without him in the Oval Office. Let's listen.
Trump elnök úr a béke elnöke volt, tiszteletet parancsolt a világban, és ezzel megteremtette a béke feltételét. Az elnöksége alatt béke volt a Közel-Keleten, és béke volt Ukrajnában is. Ma sem lenne háború, ha még mindig ő lenne az Egyesült Államok elnöke.
And we're joined by Ann Applebaum. She's a staff writer for The Atlantic, author of several books, including Twilight of Democracy. And, you know, there's so much going on, and I guess because of the solar eclipse that occurred because of Katie Britt's performance after the State of the Union. I mean, the Orban-Trump visit sort of got overshadowed a little bit. And I'm just curious if we get your reaction to Viktor Orban, this headline coming out of their meeting this morning. Orban saying that the two talked about Russia's war in Ukraine and that Trump is not going to fund it. I mean, that should be very chilling to leaders across Europe this morning.
You know, let me start by connecting your previous segment to this one, because Orban is really the European leader who invented the idea of the fake campaign against migrants and the idea that the migrants are invading. And there's a secret plot that migrants will replace, ethnic Hungarians.
That's right.
And he was the one who started that. And some of what you're hearing the GOP do and Trump himself do is actually an imitation of that. This kind of in the case of Hungary, it's a completely fake story. There was no border crisis in Hungary, no real one. We do have one, but it's of course very nuanced and complicated. But using this military language, turning it into an invasion, this is what Orban did to hide his real agenda. So he talked about migrants, he talked about Hungary's enemies, and then behind the scenes, what he's actually done as prime minister is do deals with Russia, do deals with China, corrupt Hungary, reduce the Hungarian business elite to just a few people who are his friends. And I think that is actually the model that he is presenting that's so appealing to the GOP. And it's also, it's also the explanation for the connection between Hungary, Trump, and Russia. So the agenda is, we do private deals with Russia, and we, but we don't talk about it in public. And I think Trump actually talks very rarely about Ukraine in public, very rarely about Russia. But we know from his actions that he has been responsible for blocking, for persuading the House to block aid to Ukraine in order for Ukraine to lose so that Russia wins.
But, and Ann, there's also, I mean, the arguably, maybe you'll disagree with me, the larger issue of all the world leaders that Donald Trump is bringing to Mar-a-Lago, during this general election campaign, which has basically started, he brings Viktor Orban, this autocrat in Europe that I suppose might form some kind of alliance with Donald Trump. Maybe it's kind of a post-NATO world that they envision. More autocratic world that they envision. I mean, this should alarm a lot of Americans, and the fact that they're talking foreign policy, talking about very significantly altering foreign policy of the United States when it comes to Ukraine. I mean, that should raise alarm bells.
Yeah, look, a German member of parliament said to me a few weeks ago in Munich, we in Europe realize now that in a matter of months or years, we could be facing three autocracies, Russia, China, and the United States. And so, yes, there is a very real fear that Trump will align with Russia against Europe, that Russia will cease to, not just cease to send military aid to Ukraine, but will also encourage further Russian incursion into Europe. So absolutely, it's an enormous fear. And of course, that would change the balance of power in the world, and it would have an enormous effect on perceptions of the U.S. in the world, on trade with the U.S., on whether Europeans buy American products, all kinds of things that most people don't factor in. America being the security guarantor for Europe bestows a lot of advantages on the United States, including economic advantages. And once we lose that, it's going to be very hard to win back.
That's right. I mean, our European allies, they're going to be tempted to form other alliances if they see Donald Trump on the verge of coming back to the White House. I mean, you hear that from diplomatic officials here in Washington all the time. And another parallel between Viktor Orban and Donald Trump we should talk about this morning on CNBC. Trump called Facebook and the news media here in the United States the enemy of the people. Now, he was talking about it in reference to a TikTok question, but let's watch this.
I consider Facebook to be an enemy of the people, along with a lot of the media. I think Facebook has been I think Facebook has been very bad for our country, especially when it comes to elections.
Now, he seems to be coming to TikTok's rescue a little bit with all of this talk of Washington of cracking down on TikTok. We should note, I mean, one place where you see a lot of MAGA propaganda is on TikTok these days, so perhaps that has something to do with it. But we should also note a number of press freedom organizations have blasted Viktor Orban's crackdown on the media. Of course, we saw that during the Trump administration here in the U.S. It sounds like another parallel.
So what's important about Orban's crackdown on the media and why it's an example for that minority of the Republican Party who want a more authoritarian system is that it wasn't done with censorship. So Orban didn't censor people. Instead, he used tactics. He used business pressure on advertisers who advertised in independent media. He would say, do you really want to place that advertisement because you might lose your government contract if you do? He used, he cut funding for all kinds of advertising that the government used to do. In other words, he put business pressure on media in order to put it out of business. And eventually, over a period of time, he succeeded. And that's something that's never been tried in the United States, certainly not with the federal government seeking to put media out of business on purpose. But it's something we could see. I mean, it's something that others have tried to imitate. Orban did it. The previous Polish government that lost the election in October tried to do it. Others have seen this as a kind of example.
Absolutely. There's no question about it. I mean, if you look at press freedom organizations, they have basically called Viktor Orban a press freedom predator in his country. So that's obviously something that should worry a lot of people. Art and Applebaum, thanks as always. We appreciate it.
Our panel is back with us, including Shermichael Singleton, who rode his Ducati as quickly as possible to arrive with us. Welcome, Shermichael.
Thank you.
So let's start with this Orban situation. High praise for this strongman hosting him at the club. Can you sort of, how do you view this as a Republican? What's going on?
It's not only the former president, but even the Heritage Foundation. They've also hosted him, and Heritage Foundation clearly a conservative, once upon a time academic intelligentsia in the same vein as AEI and the Hoover Institute. They've sort of moved more towards a populist nationalist sentiment. I think what you find when you talk to many MAGA supporters are that they do view the way Viktor has sort of led his country as something that we need in the United States to sort of correct some of our errors, whether that's culturally, whether that's politically. I, as a conservative, obviously do not agree with that because I think there are far more better ways to disagree with individuals on the other side than having a strong man in power. And so I would caution the former president, because you do run the risk, which he's already having trouble with those moderate Republicans, maybe even some conservative-leaning Democrats who may say, I like certain economic policies that conservatives may traditionally support. You're going to have a difficult time reaching out to some of those individuals.